is going around. We have 22 members present. Supervisors Niles, Ballman, and Dizak are excused this evening. Next up is consideration and correction of any of our minutes from our April 27th County Board meeting. Motion by Supervisor Banquet, seconded by Supervisor Alec to approve those minutes. Any discussion on the motion? See none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. There's no changes or corrections to the agenda, so if I could have County Executive Bob Ziegelbauer come up to the podium and the Vogel family could come up to it, that'd be great. First we'll start with a proclamation. First, welcome once again. As you know, June is Dairy Month here in the state of Wisconsin, and obviously we do a proclamation. The Vogel Family Farm will be hosting breakfast on the farm, and I'm sure they can talk more about it. And I'm looking forward to it once again after being postponed last year. So, all right. Whereas agriculture accounts for approximately 7,000 jobs in Manitowoc County and provides annual cash receipts of over $300 million annually, with over 75% attributed to the sale of milk. And whereas Manitowoc County agriculture accounts for a combined total economic impact of over $2 billion per year. And whereas Manitowoc County ranks in the top 3 Wisconsin counties and in the top 1% of all counties in the United States in annual milk production. And whereas Manitowoc County's approximately 170 dairy farms and 58,000 dairy cows produced over 1.6 billion pounds of milk in 2019. And whereas Manitowoc County farms pay an average of $48.9 million in sales, property, and income tax each year. And whereas, in celebration of the importance of the dairy industry to Manitowoc County, Vogel Family Farms of 8901 Hilltop Road, Reedsville, Wisconsin, will host a 2021 Breakfast on the Farm on June 13th from 8 a.m. till noon. Now, therefore, we, Bob Ziegelbauer, County Executive, and Jim Bryan, Manitowoc County Board Chairman, along with the County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of June as June is Dairy Month in Manitowoc County. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it very much. And we're sorry you can talk and introduce everything.
All right. Thank you guys for inviting us and giving us this proclamation. I'm Amanda Linsmeyer. I am a part owner of Vogel Family Farms. This is my cousin Gabe Vogel with his girlfriend and his son, Emmett, and then Davey with Grandma Kay and my uncle Guy, who is also a partner. We farm, my dad is also a partner, and I have 2 younger kids and a husband that are not here because they're also busy and have to go to bed soon. So we are excited to host the Breakfast on the Farm. Our farm started actually back in 1958 by my grandparents, Marcellus and Joanne Vogel. And then they took on my dad and my uncle to be partners in this business. And then as time went on, Gabe and I got asked to be partners in the farm as well. So going forward, we added on a few things as time changes and we grew. And this year we put up a big shed and a new heifer barn. So we got asked to do the Breakfast on the Farm. And we thought, well, this is the year to do it because it's never going to get any cleaner. So we're hoping for some good weather and hope to see everybody out there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But
thank you so much. Thank you all very much for coming. Good luck. We're looking forward to that. And I guess one of these years with the proclamation, I'm going to try to figure out how much of that percentage of milk I drink every year, because I'm sure I think a nice chunk on that in my family as well. Next up, we have another honor. We have the Eagles Club of Manitowoc here to present 2 awards to officers within the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. So if Mike Strauss and the representative from the Eagles Club could come up, and Sheriff Dan Hartwig and the two officers being honored tonight, would that be great? And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mike. Nice to see you again as a fellow Eagle member.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. It's nice to be back kind of in familiar territory. 20 some years ago, I served among you gentlemen and ladies, and there's a few faces I still recognize, a little bit older maybe, but, but it's nice to be back. It's unfortunate we had to come back to do it tonight. COVID just kind of still reared its ugly head a little bit, and we were unable for the second year to have our Eagles Awards banquet. So we felt this was the most appropriate venue to present the awards again this year. And it's always an honor to appear here. It's a great honor that the Eagles Club looks forward to every year. I have with me, or along with me tonight, is our area president, Lenny Meyer, and one of our past presidents, Fran Jorash. Fran, just a little bit of information, will be going in as our state president next month. We're hosting the state convention here in Manitowoc, so we look forward to having somebody from Manitowoc as our state president next year. For nearly 40 years, the Manitowoc Eagles Area 706 has held our annual Spring Awards Banquet, where we honor members of the Manitowoc Police and Fire Departments, along with members of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, as well as our area scholarship recipients. It is the highlight of our Eagle Year, and we always look forward to it. We have a long history of supporting our public safety departments, but unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we were unable to have our banquet again this year. After discussing some options with the possibility of moving it to fall, we felt this was the safest and most appropriate option to make the presentations again this year. And this gives some well-deserved recognition to the honorees. We are very proud to be here this evening. The award winners from the respective departments are chosen by their departments and are nominated for many reasons. Acts of heroism, longevity, performance above and beyond the call of duty in the service to their community, or any activity that makes our community a safer and better place to reside. And we're very, very appreciative for the work that they do. At this time, I'd like to invite Sheriff Dan Hartwig up to present this year's recipients. Sheriff.
Well, it's nice to be back before the county board. Thank you again for the opportunity. You're probably in the second most protected building in the county right now, maybe outside of Point Beach Nuclear Plant. We have a lot of law enforcement officers in the back of the room here who are here to also honor and represent a couple of our family members here who are receiving awards tonight. So I wanted to thank you all again for your continued support. I know Susie had talked to me last year after the banquet, or after a presentation, and grabbed me by the arm. She says, please do this again. We like seeing this stuff. So we're back again, Susie. So thank you again for the suggestion on that. But when I talk about family, I noticed, got our employees over here, but they're also represented by their families. And I think it's very important. We had a shooting in Two Rivers last night, and the three gentlemen who are actually representing here today, all their pagers went off last night because they're also members of our emergency response team. Dean is one of our negotiators, and both John and Brett are both operators on our SWAT team. So we're a small knit family, and so for parents of our recipients tonight and spouses, I served 16 years on the SWAT team myself, and I absolutely know the fear that goes through a spouse when that pager goes off, but you need that text message when everything's okay to alleviate that fear. So I respect it and I understand it, and I wanted to thank you as well for sharing your time, or sharing their time with us. I think that's huge and important here at the Sheriff's Office. So I'd also like to thank the Eagles again for once again this year with these awards for our employees. I think it's very important to recognize the work that goes on. And 2020 was a very challenging year. As I'm sure you know, you've been bounced between different buildings. We've gone through mask mandates. We've gone through business shutdowns. But crime continued. The need for our officers continued, and they continue to answer the call. So because 2020 was a very interesting year, we had the unique opportunity of having several individuals at our Sheriff's Office nominated for Officer of the Year. And as the Eagles had said, it's picked by the agency. And they are submitted to a committee for Officer of the Year, and that committee then votes based off the nominations. And it's very interesting because 2020 was so interesting, and the two individuals that are receiving awards tonight, both John and Brett for Officer of the Year, the awards committee came back on 2 separate times with the same vote. And I think that's an epitome of the quality of people that we have at the Sheriff's Office and what they've done for the past year. So because 2020 was an interesting year, we contacted the Eagles and had asked if we could nominate 2 Officers of the Year, because I think it was very fitting, and both those individuals are more than deserving of it, and they're a good representation of our agency. So John Schweedy is the first one. Now, I've known John since 2016. One of my passions part-time is teaching at our police academy. So I had John as a recruit at Fox Valley Technical College. He ended up getting hired over at Chippewa Falls Police Department, but I think his heart was home. He wanted to come back to Manitowoc, and we were very, very fortunate in 2018 to get him to come on to the Sheriff's Office. And since then, he has been nothing short of spectacular, and I call both of them, both him and Brett are both rock stars for us, one in patrol and one in detective. John's a member of our SWAT team. He's been a field training officer in a short time. He's a defense and arrest tactics instructor, a drug recognition expert, which is not an easy course. Helps out with technology support, mobile field force, and he's, if you can see the clothes, his family members had to change the clothes back there because he's coming from Dodge County, because he's currently training with his new canine, Rocky. So John's been a wonderful addition to our agency, and he was recognized this year by Manitowoc Common Council for a life-saving award. John's the first one in our county at the Sheriff's Office to actually save somebody's life with a tourniquet. He responded to a motorcycle accident with a very severe leg injury. He was the first one there. He had the right equipment, he had the right training, the right mentality, took action and helped save the life. So he was nominated for that, and we're extremely happy to have him, and very fortunate because he makes my job a lot easier along with Brett. Now Brett came to us from Anago. He's got his 4-year degree from the University of Stevens Point. Brett started with us in 2012, and immediately we knew that he was going to be a shining star for us because he had a natural gift of talking to people. And talked to him on the side once, why are you so good at talking to people? And he used to be a telemarketer back in his days, so he had the gift of gab. So I'm like, I think that's going to be a future detective. And he ended up rising through the ranks very quickly. But as I said, with the pandemic, Brett deals with some of the most sensitive crimes that we have in our community, and that's sexual crimes against children. And he does an absolute phenomenal job with it. I can't even put words to the job that he does and how committed he is with it. And some of the stuff that he has to deal with cannot be unseen. So he has my hat off. He's an amazing human being and is absolutely great at what he does. So John and Brett, thank you guys for the past year and for your continued service. And we're honored to have you guys as our Officers of the Year.
I'm here to award the Eagles Law Enforcement Award presented to Deputy John Schweedy, for dedicated service to our community in the fields of law enforcement and crime prevention. Dated this 18th day of May, 2021.
The Eagles Law Enforcement Award presented to Detective Brent Oswald for the dedicated service to our community in the fields of law enforcement and crime prevention, dated this day, 18th day of May, 2021. Congratulations, Brett.
Well, as the sheriff said, I like to talk, so give me a moment, please.
We do issue fines for more than 5 minutes.
Okay, start the clock. So, good evening. I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight and to congratulate Deputy Schweedy and Corrections Officer Greenwood on being my co-winners of the Officer of the Year. So, where's Manitowoc? That's what I thought when I received the call. When I first got a call for the testing process and the hiring process for the deputy sheriff position. And I remember driving back to Stevens Point one time, and I stopped at the Wendy's in Appleton, getting a flurry and calling my wife thinking, well, I'm probably never going to be back here because the interview was awful. So if one of you would have came to me one day and said, well, Brett, you're going to be the officer of the year for the sheriff's office, I would have never believed you. But it's been a great time. So in my life journey here, there's been a lot of people that I want to thank. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank my wife because she's been my rock, and my 2 little girls. And she transplanted herself into Manitowoc County as well, so you got her too. And I obviously couldn't do it without the police officers and people that I work with. And I'd like to thank Sheriff Hartwig for being our leader at the sheriff's office and having such a positive attitude. And there's a lot of people that I'd like to thank. More specifically over the years, Lieutenant Cummings, Littlefield, and Investigator Hayes, as those are all my first patrol supervisors. And throughout the years, I had field trainers, Matt Perano and Mitch Geisler. And when I came to Manitowoc, I didn't know how to be a policeman. And those are all the guys who taught me how to be policemen. And with those skills, I took them into the investigative realm. And there was a lot of people who unselfishly became mentors in my life and really helped me hone my skills and be a better person. And Lieutenant Remaker, who's standing with the camera right there, I'd like to thank him. Pete McGinty, who works for the city of Manitowoc, who was one of the supervisors in the drug unit. Andy Beck, who's standing right back there, who was one of my coworkers in the drug unit. Those are all people who I really thought took me under their wing and taught me how to be a policeman and taught me how to do my job. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for being here and taking some time out of your day. And Jason Yost back there too, my supervisor in the Detective Bureau. Thanks for taking your time out of the day. I didn't think this many people were going to show up. Once again, I'm honored to have this award, and I'm honored to be a part of the Sheriff's Office here in Manitowoc. Thank you.
Gonna quickly go in, I guess, with Brett. You mentioned your graduate at UW-Stevens Point as a fellow pointer, but I'm a little disappointed in your statement when you said you were going back to point. You stopped at Wendy's and got a Frosty. You couldn't wait to get the belts. Okay. Those who know, Stevens Point has a very famous place called Belts for ice cream. So we were up there 2 weeks ago visiting my son, who was also a pointer, so we got a chance to go there. It's been a couple of years, but I digress. I'm sorry. Please continue on.
All right, and we also have our Corrections Officer of the Year. Corrections, I think, is one of the unseen and unsung jobs, just like our dispatchers. You call 911, you talk to somebody on the other end of the line, but you don't talk to them. And our corrections officers fill a vital role over at the Sheriff's Office. We're responsible for the care and custody of those that are brought into our jail, either by our local law enforcement officers or that are sentenced to our jail. So it is an immensely important job, and Dean Greenwood is an amazing individual, to say the least. We're very fortunate to have Dean at the Sheriff's Office. He's been there since 1999. That is a long time of changing inmates, feeding inmates, handing out discipline. But with his experience, we have a large amount of younger individuals in our jail. And I know Brett kind of used the word mentor. And I think that would be a great word to describe Dean. He was nominated by his coworkers, and the quote that stuck out to me, which I sent out in the press release for this, is, if there were a model for corrections officers, Dean would be the perfect example. He is self-reliant, a team player, and someone you can always rely on to have your back. And I think it's very fitting that Dean would fit that role of mentor, and he's looked up upon in the jail. And he's doing one hell of a job with it. Now, just in the past 2.5 years, one of my biggest things is I always like to take walks through the jail. I like to see the staff. I call it managing by walking around, meeting with our staff. Dean is one of those individuals that I absolutely love having a short conversation with. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always got a positive attitude. And for him in the jail, I think he's a perfect fit for it. But he's also just recently, again, got paged out last night with the SWAT team. He's another one who's a silver-tongued fellow, who's very good at talking to people as one of our SWAT negotiators. He's also a electronic control device instructor and pepperball instructor, along with a bunch of other items that he helps take care of at the jail. So I know there's several corrections officers here who are supporting him as well, along with his spouse and parents. So again, thank you for sharing him with us. And he is a role model in our jail, and we're more than happy to have him and honored to have him as our Corrections Officer of the Year. Indeed.
With that, I'd like to present the Eagles Law Enforcement Award to Corrections Officer Dennis Greenwood for dedicated service to our community in the fields of law enforcement and crime prevention, dated this 18th day of May 2021. Congratulations.
Again, we expect them to run into danger, but they run away from a microphone, which is not a problem.
Sometimes it's the most dangerous thing in the world.
One other thing I wanted to add on Dean. One thing I like to do usually when somebody gets either their 15 or 20-year anniversary, I send those out to our county board members. I like to post that on Facebook to recognize our employees. One thing that really stuck out on Dean's 20-year that I put out was a former inmate actually made a comment on our Facebook page. It basically was, I liked him, he treated me with respect. Now, if people are putting that on our Facebook page about a corrections officer, that goes to show what type of character that Dean has. So, but absolutely. So I want to thank you again for taking the time to allow us to honor employees, and hope you have a best rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the recipients. We have one final presentation we'd like to make. Even though we couldn't have our banquet this year, we felt as an organization we wanted to do a little bit more above and beyond. So during the course of the year, fundraising has been a little difficult with what's been going on. But we're able to raise a little bit of money through some things at our club, which we did for entertainment-only purposes. And we were able to raise and present each of the departments, the two in the city last night, and the sheriff's department, each a check for $300. And I understand you have a new canine unit stepping forward. So at this time, we'd like to present you a check for $300 if you'd like to use towards your canine program. Again, in closing, thank you for what you do. Law enforcement officers, firefighters, corrections. The Eagles are very proud and are very supportive of each and every one of you, and we have your back. And if you guys and ladies ever need anything, we're there for you. So again, congratulations, and thank you for allowing us to be here tonight.
I'll just quickly remark as well. I mean, Mike, fellow Eagles, I'm an Eagles member as well, and I know Bob's an Eagles member. You're always welcome, but like I said, it would be nice next year, hopefully the pandemic will be on its last legs, for lack of a better term, and the light at the end of the tunnel is coming. You could have it in person, because I remember many years ago, we were going 20-some years ago, I know then Mayor Kevin Crawford of the city of Manitowoc was going to give a speech at one of the banquets. I was Common Council president, I think, in 1998. He couldn't make it another occasion, so I gave it. And I was deciding, what could I do to talk about it? And actually it was a little bit later than that, because my son was already born, but he was, and if you remember, Rescue Heroes. And I don't know if anybody was there that night, but I gave the speech, and I used those two rescue heroes, and it was great to give it, to talk about the firemen and the police people and the sheriff's deputies and law enforcement in Manitowoc County. So Like I said, you're always welcome here, but I look forward more to having it. Like you said, if you have to have it in a tent out in the parking lot next year, we're going to do it. So thank you once again, Eagles Club. We'll wait a moment or two until if everybody, you're certainly welcome to stay if you would like to watch the rest of the meeting. You're free to go too, though. That's all right. All right, we'll move along with the agenda. Next up is public comment. If there's anybody from the public wishing to speak to any matter germane to Manitowoc County government, just raise your hand. You can come up to the podium. You'll be allowed to speak for approximately 3 minutes. Supervisor Williams, you had something quick?
I just wanted to mention what a breath of fresh air that we just experienced here for this 15 minutes or so. After what we've been bombarded with country-wise or worldwide, with the rabble that's trying to take over our country, destroy our Constitution and everything else, and to see these brave young men and women making our place a whole lot safer than I thought it actually was. So thanks to them again.
Thank you, Supervisor Williams. Public comment. Is there anybody wishing to speak to the county board this evening? Yes, Margaret. We'll start with Margaret, and then we'll go to Maura.
I'm ready?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Margaret Powells of Manitowoc County, and I'm here representing the concerned citizens of Manitowoc County to speak against the inroads of systematic racism, political ideology in our Manitowoc Public Library. This has occurred through the cooperative effort of the leadership of the library and Lakeshore United Visionaries, or LOVE. LOVE has been helping the library to create community programs and staff trainings, such as one called Privilege and Power, how we can make the library a more welcoming space for Black, Indigenous people of color in our service area. Is there a specific problem with races in our library? Are library staff trained to treat all library customers equally? Have there been complaints by minorities against our library? How much other training has LOVE conducted for library personnel? We know that LOVE was contracted for and paid $1,000 to conduct a training program for all library staff on April 23rd, when the library was closed to the public for half of the day. Over 400 training sessions for library personnel have been conducted over the past several months. Who conducted these trainings? Why are library staff members being paid to watch people in Black Lives Matter gear redesign story time? Were those trainers paid for their services? Was this training designed to promote systematic racism ideology, using the library as a political indoctrination center? These questions need to be answered. Meanwhile, we have put in an open records request to the Manitowoc Library Director for the text of the April 23rd Library in-Service, focused on white privilege, intersectionality, and systematic racism oppression, designed by Patrick N. and the representatives from LOVE. That's quoted from their February 2021 newsletter. Manager's report newsletter. A public library should never, under any circumstances, be used to promote political ideology. The dangers inherent in such activity include potentially violating the rights of library employees by creating a hostile work environment, not to mention the effect this has on our community.
About 1 minute.
A is for activism story time is one example. A is for apple or airplane. Preschools are not able to understand abstract concepts such as activism. We know that the county government provides a significant percentage of the Manitowoc Public Library's funding. Therefore, we respectfully request a county government audit of these training sessions to determine the nature of the training, who conducted the training, their qualifications, and most importantly, whether taxpayer dollars were expended to promote political ideology, and staff compelled to engage in such promotion within the library. Thank you for your time and any information that could be provided about county money being used to promote systematic racism ideology within our library.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Maura, you were next. Maura, you wanted to speak, correct?
Good evening, Chip Yost, Centerville. I begin by acknowledging I overstated the current amount of our county's principal debt by $1,275,000. That amount was included in the 2019-2020 Resolution 50A as our county's current principal debt as of March 8th was $43,540. I apologize for my error and thank you for your understanding. I commend the Finance Committee and the County Board for paying off a bit more than $450,000 last March. Unfortunately, barely 6 months later, our county again had to borrow principal of $9,750,000 to keep our county government operating. County Executive Ziegelbauer regularly cites our principal debt as only 8% of the allowable state's maximum amount. Although true, this statement doesn't include the high interest cost of borrowing. Indeed, during his tenure from 2006 to today, the amount of our principal debt has increased by 56%. We are living beyond our means and passing today's costs on to future taxpayers through deficit financing. I continue to advocate for a countywide sales tax of a half cent on a dollar spent to fund our county's operations. My advocacy is consistent with Governor Evers' proposed budget and the recommendations of the Wisconsin Counties Association. Quoting, "For too long, counties have been forced to rely on property taxes to fund local services and state mandates. Today's announcement gives local taxpayers a voice in how they prefer to pay for services. Our county and its local governments will be receiving significant amounts of funding from the federal government for COVID relief. The Treasury Department is finalizing spending guidelines, and as of 3 weeks ago, our county had spent only about $600,000 on
Maura, you have about 1 minute.
Thank you. $600,000 on COVID-related activities per our finance director. Given the anticipated multi-million-dollar influx into our county and its communities, it is especially important to plan for these expenditures. As we know, the best time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak to the public this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Julie Roslin, Manitowoc County. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population. But I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers, with the wisdom of a serpent. I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild, until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon, I could evict God from the courthouses.
You have about 1 minute to speak.
And then from the schoolhouse, and from then the houses of Congress, and in his own churches. I would substitute psychology for the religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls in church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbols of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want until I'd killed the incentives of the ambitious. I'm going to stop because I'm going to run out of time, but this is from Paul Harvey. This is from 1965, and it's very prophetic. The United States has fought a lot of wars. We've fought tyranny, fascism, communism, Marxism, Islamic radicalism, and you might not realize it, but right now we're fighting a war of good and evil. From where I'm standing, it looks like evil might be winning. Teaching critical race theory in school and in the library is evil. It's racist. It's not right. Introducing transgenderism to children and young adults at the school and the library is evil. Forcing children to cover their faces in school and the library to get funding or to go along with an agenda is evil. The library and the school district are on a path of destruction. The current book recommendations promote evil. They promote transgenderism, racism, hate, division, sex, drugs, and the occult. The people on this board were trusted. We trusted you because we have faith in you.
You have about 15 seconds.
To be the voice of the people, to do the right thing and support and defend the Constitution of the United States. By allowing the library and the school district to continue these would be a failure of that oath. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak this evening? Anyone else wishing to speak? And for a third and final time, anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll declare public comment closed, and we'll move on with the agenda. Communications are shown on the agenda. There's no unfinished business from our last meeting, so I'll move on to appointments by the county executive. First up is the local emergency planning committee to appoint 3 members to succeed Chad Bennon, Carl Pusto, and Robert Wagner, and alternate Bob Meyer for a 2-year term expiring June 20 of 23, and the recommendations for Chad Bennon, Carl Pusto, Robert Wagner, and alternate Bob Meyer. Motion by Supervisor Aulick, second by Supervisor Hagan to approve those appointments. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried, and the appointments are approved. Thank you very much. We'll jump to committee reports. Next, first up will be Aging and Disabilities Board. Supervisor Wagner is the chair.
Thank you, Chairman Brime. Our next meeting will be next week, Tuesday, the 25th at 1 o'clock and we will be having it in this room. There will also be available of a Zoom in case somebody doesn't want to come in, from Kiwanee or Manitowoc. So that's the end of my report on that. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Wagner? Thank you very much. Board of Health, Supervisor Metzger is the chair.
I have no report. We will be meeting June 10th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Metzger? Thank you very much. Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Supervisor Falkowski is our representative there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. The meeting of the Manitowoc County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council was May 5th. The drug court update, there are currently 12 participants remaining active and 2 are in termination phases. The pandemic has been difficult on participants. The current program totals are now 12 terminations and 28 graduations. The grant program renewal application will be in June or July. The results will, in part, depend upon funding in the state's budget. Clients are back in person meetings, and it is not known whether full public sessions will resume. Stacy Lavinia briefed the council on the youth justice programs for Manitowoc County. There have been changes in youth justice programming this past year. Referral numbers are declining, 161 referrals, fewer kids, yet these youth are committing more crimes than in the past when reviewing statistics. There were only 21 bookings to detention in 2020. The youth in detention now are the ones that leave little options. Unfortunately, there are still instances when the use of detention is in part because there's a lack of other placement options. From a fiscal note, the Casey Foundation is no longer a funding source. The state is working on some initiatives taking over youth justice from the Department of Justice. A recent change, Justice Point is no longer under contract, and our own staff has accommodated the change. Recently, the Youth Justice Innovation Grant of $150,000 has been received. This is for working on mindfulness programming, adapting kids with higher needs, including mental health issues. The healthiest Manitowoc County Mental Health and AODA Youth Justice received $1,500, and this will be applied to Kids at Hope Garden and the fishing opportunities. The founder of Kids at Hope program will be in town in August, so watch for some details. A question was asked if mindfulness really helps. It is noted that this is a method that helps youth slow down, gives them some time to recognize actions do have impact events. An example were glitter jars that were passed on amongst the commissioners. These little jars think of it as a snow globe. There's particles that are in here that are floating, and what the intention is for the youth to shake it and basically wait for it to settle before they abruptly make a change or a direction of thought. Well, this is a non-traditional way of addressing things. It is needed for the youth population, and the kids are participating in it. Our next CJC meeting is September 1st, and I thank you, and that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Supervisor Falkowski? Thank you very much. Executive Committee, the only thing I have is just a reminder, if anybody on the county board would like to join myself and Bob for the Memorial Day Parade. It begins 9 a.m. on Memorial Day, which is May 31st. If you can get there by 8:45 a.m., we'll be meeting on the east side of the courthouse between, I gotta think of Washington Street and Hancock. We're kind of by the steps in the street over by the courthouse pub, so you're certainly welcome to do that. And there's obviously the ceremony up here at the Veterans Memorial afterwards, and you're welcome to stay there as well. Any questions? All right, thank you. Expo Ice Center Board, Supervisor Kavanagh is our representative there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Expo Ice Center Board met last Wednesday, May 12th. We approved the request from the Small Animal Committee to have an auction during the fair, very similar to the large market animal auction. We approved a request from the Mishicot FFA to display their restored John Deere tractor at the fair. Passed a motion to have a Thank a Farmer banner displayed at the fair starting in 2022, which would be thanking the family that hosts the county breakfast on the farm. This year's host, of course, as we know, you've seen earlier tonight, is the Vogel Family Farm by Branch. It's just south of Branch by the golf course. I know they have a regional address. That might be a little confusing. It's just south of Branch. And it is Sunday, June 13th. It was mentioned that the Celebrity Cream Puff Contest has quite a few sign-ups this year, so our county board chair, he's going to have competition. The fair competition, which normally was on a separate day, is going to be held this year on Saturday during the fair. We're trying something new. And the fair, as hopefully everybody knows, is Wednesday, August 25th through Sunday, the 29th. And our next meeting will be Wednesday, June 9th. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Supervisor Kavanagh? I guess I'd like to start practicing, but I don't know if I did. But there are, I guess who's ever seen this or participated in it, it's an interesting thing to do and try. And it isn't as easy as you look. And you know, you think, the first time I went out to do it years and years ago, I actually thought you'd be allowed to pick it up and eat like a sandwich or a hamburger. No, you put your hands behind your back and you have to bob like one of those little ducks that go for water in those glasses you used to see. So it's very interesting. So thank you very much, Supervisor Kavanagh. Finance Committee, Supervisor Hanson is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Practice makes perfect. So I would get my face right down on that cream puff now. Finance met before the board tonight. We had another light agenda. We got some great information from Patricia Dodge on the resolutions that you will hear more about later from Human Service Board and Personnel. We did vote on the Adult Protective Services one and gave unanimous consent from Finance for that also. Next month, the executive will start filling us in on the budget starting, and the audit should be done from last year, I believe. So we'll have some information on that for you. And we are moving our meetings back to the administrative offices downtown now that COVID is weakening, or we're getting a handle on it, or whatever is happening. But there seems to be less of a threat, so we're going to go back downtown to the administration office, and that will be the second Monday of the month. Read your addenda for the time. We're just going to check with a couple members to make sure they can make it. We're going to try to start a little earlier. That's it, Mr. Chair.
All right, you have a resolution yet?
Oh, yes, I do have a resolution. I was thinking of cream puffs in my head. We do have a resolution that we did, as a committee, vote to deny a claim. There were two gentlemen that are asking for some money because they feel they were treated unfair by the county, and we are denying that claim, and as the advice of our insurance company told us to do, and as we as a committee thought so. So I move that resolution, and we'll look for a second.
So motion by Supervisor Hanson, seconded by Supervisor Williams. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution denying claim for Oscar Rodriguez and Nicholas Vetter.
Resolution passed 22-0. I'm sorry, 21-1 with Supervisor Williams voting no. Okay, I apologize. I guess I didn't see that red mark out there, but thank you. Supervisor Hanson, anything else?
That's it, Mr. Chair, I hope.
Any questions for Supervisor Hanson? Thank you very much. Highway Committee, Supervisor Banquet is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on May 11th a number of things. We denied a driveway access request on County LS on the south side of the city, based on past practice of driveway applications in that area. We denied that request. We had a number of hangar lease changes that were made as part of our job as highway to monitor those hangar leases. We also had from traffic and safety, and just an update on Highway K and T out in the village of Kellnersville. There was a request originally from the village to go to a four-way stop. That's all filtered down. The people of the village spoke in a vote to not do the four-way stop. So as far as we were concerned, we stayed with their wishes and decided to do that. We also had the Pearly Gates Veterans Memorial Ride, asked for a closure of County Highway T on July 10th. We approved that. Just a nice event. Good to see some of those things happening again, and our ability to grant that request. Commissioner Grodegat gave us an update on the safety program that the highway training was in April, and that was well done, and they covered a lot of different things. It's amazing all the things that they have to do in training to prepare for all the things that they do on I-43, state highways, and throughout the county. So hats off to the highway commissioner and our highway employees for that participation and the training that they took part in. Our next meeting will be June 15th, prior to the county board meeting if we need that meeting. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for Supervisor Banky? Thank you very much. Human Services Board, Supervisor Hendrickson is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on Thursday, April 22nd. Our education topic was Lisa Steffen is a supervisor of the Birth to 3 and CLTS programs. She mentioned that the Birth to 3 program switched contracted providers last year to Rehab Resources of Sheboygan, and the transition has gone very smoothly. We're very happy with their service. The CLTS waiver program is a home community-based service waiver that funds community support to serve for children who have substantial limitations in their daily activities and need support to remain in their home and community. As of January 1st, Wisconsin went to a statewide budget and enrollment. We are obligated to continue to serve every child that is eligible. The governor's current budget includes language to make CLTS an entitlement program ensuring funding for all eligible children and eliminating wait lists. We do not have a wait list in Manitowoc. In 2017, we had 96 kids in the program. In 2020, we had 217 kids enrolled in the program. In 2020, we had added additional workers. Since that time, we have added 51 more kids to the program and have 26 providers. Our caseloads average between 25 and 35 cases. We are requesting an additional staff member to handle the increased numbers. We currently have 11 new families setting up for services. In the financial and statistic reports, members were given the handouts, and basically we did not have a report of the director's report at this month. Our next meeting date will be Thursday, May 27th at 4:45 p.m. And it's held on the 8th Street office building. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Supervisor Hendrickson? Thank you very much. Land Conservation Committee, UW Extension Education and Agricultural Committee, Supervisor Wagner is the chair.
Thank you, Chairman Bryan. The next meeting for the land conservation will be this week, May 20th at 4:45 at the county office complex. And the next meeting for the UW Extension, Education, and Agricultural Committee will be next month, June 17th at the county office complex. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Supervisor Wagner? Thank you very much. Personnel Committee, Supervisor Marish is the chair.
Thank you. We met on May 4th, and we discussed and acted on the resolution amending Section 23.05 of the Employee Policy Manual regarding security of computer resources. The next step in, this is the next step in increasing computer security and the implementation of a two-factor
It's hard to,
authorizing the use, okay? I'll explain what it means. It's authorizing you to have the right to use your computer. Okay, anyway. We will be bringing that resolution forward later on. We also discussed and acted on requests to add 1 FTE, Adult Protective Service Worker. And we currently have 5 FTE, Adult Protective Social Workers right now. That also we will be bringing later on. We discussed and acted on the request to add the 1 FTE Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Specialist that Supervisor Hendrickson had talked about also. And that there is no tax levy impact on that. That position is fully funded by the state. Okay, also we talked about the Sharon Cornell's and the county executive met or participated in a meeting with the UW Extension in Madison. Their proposal is to provide a regional dairy agent and a regional crop and soil agent. That proposed plan would include the counties of Door, Kewaunee, Manitowoc, Brown, and Calumet to be served by 2 positions. We have contacted them and told them that this proposal is not acceptable and does not meet our needs. So having said that, we are committed to hiring our own dairy agent. We will be working with the University Extension to make this happen, and we will be funding the position on our own. We'll know more about this next month, but this is a step in the right direction, and I believe, as we talked about, it probably is the only resolution to this, what we would call a problem right now. Anyway, our next meeting is June 1st. Any questions?
Any questions for Supervisor Marish? All right, thank you very much. Planning and Park Commission, Vice Chair Zimmer will be giving the report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will discuss 3 resolutions. First, Resolution 2. On April 26th, the Planning and Park Commission held a public hearing at the behest of petitioner Robert Berger to approve a rezoning of the property described in detail in the resolution from a small estate district to a lake residential district. Therefore, on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I move that the proposed resolution be approved.
So motion by Supervisor Zimmer, seconded by Supervisor Hagan to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the ordinance amending zoning map for Robert Berger.
Ordinance passed 22-0.
The next resolution is number 3. Again, on April 26th, the Planning and Park Commission held a public hearing at the behest of petitioner Judith Budnick to approve a rezoning of the property described in detail in the resolution from a commercial business district to an industrial district. Therefore, on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I move that the proposed resolution be approved.
So motion by Supervisor Zimmer, seconded by Supervisor Falkowski. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the ordinance amending zoning map for Judith Budnick.
Ordinance passed, 22 to 0, I'm sorry. I saw a red mark again, I was a little worried, but.
If you looked in vain, as I did for the next resolution, let me explain. That resolution was presented to the board, and on review by the Corporation Council contained some errors, believe it or not. Therefore, I motion that this resolution be sent back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their correction and resubmission to the board.
So motion by Supervisor Zimmer, second by Supervisor Aulick to refer this ordinance back to the Planning and Park Commission. We can discuss this under our rules, so if there's any questions or discussion on the motion, I think Supervisor Zimmer gave an excellent explanation, and this will be discussed. There was some things missed, so no big deal. Next month, I'm sure I'll be back. All right, with that, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
So the motion to send the ordinance amending Manitowoc County Code Chapter 8 shipping containers back to Planning and Park Commission for corrections.
Supervisor Zimmer and Banquet, there we go. Motion passes 22 to 0, so that will be referred back and discussed there, and hopefully be back next month.
Mr. Chairman, the next meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is to be determined. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Any questions for Supervisor Zimmer? Thank you very much. Public Safety Committee, Supervisor Nichols is the chair.
Public Safety did not meet in May. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, June 9th, and it will include our annual jail inspection.
Any questions for Supervisor Nichols? Yeah, I'm assuming that the other supervisors are invited, but they should attend, just make sure to let you or the sheriff know, I guess, so he can provide, I guess, the proper.
They're all invited to show up, yeah.
Yes, okay.
And they're on their own, though, once they get there.
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much. Public Works Committee, Supervisor Giroux is chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee met Wednesday, May 12th. We reviewed and discussed the solid waste recycling division. Prices are up on many of our recycled products, which is good for us. We reviewed and discussed the success of the 2021 drug collection program. Every year, this takes an enormous amount of things that would be thrown away that would end up flushed and get into our water systems, and now we have drop-off sites everywhere. And if you saw that picture in the packet, it's just amazing how people are using this now to get rid of all manner of prescription drugs and other things that would otherwise be thrown away. Committee reviewed and discussed the Buildings and Grounds Division and some of the 2021 capital projects. We discussed the Communications Division and the Information Systems Division, and we got a report on the Expo Fair Ice Center Division. Again, I'd like to thank AmeriCollect and Action Realty for significant donations to the fair. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Supervisor Giroux? Thank you very much. Transportation Coordinating Committee is Supervisor Ballman. He's not here tonight, so I haven't heard anything about reports. So we'll move on to miscellaneous. We have several resolutions. We'll start with the first one. Resolution authorizing an additional 1.0 full-time equivalent human services employee for the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Specialist. I'll turn over to Supervisor Hendrickson.
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, so motion by Supervisor Hendrickson, second by Supervisor Hanson to approve the resolution. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution authorizing an additional full-time equivalent human services employee, children long-term support waiver specialist.
Resolution passes 22-0. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one. On our Human Services Board, Personnel Committee, and Finance Committee, a resolution authorizing an additional one full-time equivalent human service employee in the Adult Protective Services ongoing social worker. Supervisor Henriksen, would you like to make a motion?
I so move to make the motion.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Henriksen, second by Supervisor Marsh to approve the resolution. Discussion on the motion. See none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution authorizing an additional 1.0 full-time equivalent human services employee, Adult Protective Services ongoing social worker.
Resolution passes 22-0. And last but not least tonight, from the Personnel Committee and Public Works Committee, a resolution amending employee policy 23.05, security of computer resources. I don't know if somebody would like to talk about it or just somebody like to make a motion. Supervisor Marsh, you make.
I'll make a motion that we pass the resolution amending employee policy manual.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Marsh, second by Supervisor Metzger. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, the clerk will now conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution amending employee policy manual, section 23.05, security of computer resources.
Supervisor Williams, want to try one more time? There we go. Resolution passes 22-0. Thank you. All right, that takes care of most of our business. Just under announcements, quick. First of all, last night at the Manitowoc Common Council meeting, we had our picture taken by Michael Thomas, who has taken it here for the county board. As you know, we didn't do it last year because of the pandemic going fully strong. So it is my intention, hopefully, if everybody seems to be on board with it, at the very least have a picture of the county board in the next several months. I'm looking at doing maybe at the courthouse or be a little bit more open air and stuff, but I guess depending, otherwise we can come back up here. But I'm looking at, by the end of summer, to have a picture of the county board so we can keep that tradition moving on the back wall there as well. Number two is, as you all know, June is Dairy Month, is next month. And I was thinking about that once again. At our household, we are having our driveway replaced. You know, it's been time, and I finally convinced my wife to. We've saved enough money, and we're gonna finally have our driveway replaced. And we have a refrigerator in the garage, but before that that driveway is replaced, I guess there's some ice cream in there, and I guess I'll have to get that out and maybe bring it here so we don't lose it before the concrete goes. So, look forward. Hopefully, we'll have some kind of ice cream for next month at our county board meeting. No other announcements. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Mink, second by Supervisor Giroux. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.